It is also Princess Charlotte. She turns 10 today. Can you believe it? Royal editor Russell Myers joins us now. Good morning, Russell. I can't believe she's 10 already.
It was supposed to be a quiet and uneventful day. Princess Charlotte, 9, attends a school exhibition with classmates. There's no official press, no public speeches, just kids in navy uniforms, giggling over paintings and homemade science experiments. But somewhere between the laughter and the lemonade, a single sentence slipped out, and it shook Buckingham Palace to its core. A classmate was filming a silly moment on their phone when they accidentally captured Charlotte's voice in the background. The camera was not aimed at her. The microphone did not catch everything, but what it caught was sufficient. "She's not actually our queen. Daddy just tells us we have to pretend." 7 words. 7 shattering words. The voice was unmistakably Charlotte's, confident, unfiltered, and completely damning. What about the she in question? Queen Camilla. By the time the video made its way into an elite parent group chat, the damage had already been done. Within 24 hours, the clip had reached a tabloid editor. Within 48 hours, it was leaked online. And within 72, the whole monarchy was in crisis mode. It wasn't just a mistake. It was not a tantrum. It was an echo of something deeper. Something is buried. Something had clearly been whispered behind the palace walls and picked up by the youngest of them. Because Charlotte's words did not sound like a childish rebellion. They sounded like the truth. The kind of truth that only comes out when adults believe children aren't paying attention. When they believe the palace walls are strong enough, the aides are loyal enough, and the past is buried so deeply that no one remembers. But Charlotte remembered. What she remembered or overheard is now reshaping the royal family's future. The firm, which had already been walking a tightrope since King Charles's coronation, now faced a public relations nightmare of the most unpredictable kind. A child, too young to be scripted and too honest to be silenced, had just drawn the curtain back. Behind that curtain, tension, grief, history, and a monarchy still dealing with the ghost of Princess Diana. As the palace raced to contain the leak and reporters scrambled to verify the clip, one thing was clear. This was not just a private moment made public. This was the generation. The audio is only 8 seconds long. It starts innocently enough. The muffled sound of school children laughing as they crowd around a painted model of Windsor Castle. One boy is narrating the scene for a video he's making with his phone. His voice is loud and playful, but in the background, just off to the right of the frame, a different voice emerges, quieter but clearer than anyone expected. "She's not actually our queen. Daddy just tells us we have to pretend." That is it. No context. There is no follow-up, but it hits like a hammer. At first, the video was circulated innocuously. Parents shared it on WhatsApp, amused by how polished Charlotte sounded, until one mother, a friend of a friend, took a closer listen. She replayed it, slowed it down, then her heart stopped. Was that actually Charlotte? Did she just say that about Camilla? Within hours, the clip had reached a gossip journalist. The audio was enhanced, cross-referenced with known Charlotte speech samples. 2 lip readers confirmed it after reviewing the faint visual outline of her words, which were captured in profile on the edge of the frame. That was her, and the line was not an error. It was not a misheard quotation. She intended it. The palace was alerted shortly before 9 a.m. the following morning. By 10:30 a.m., an emergency meeting had begun between Kensington Palace press officers and senior Clarence House aides. William hadn't yet replied. Camilla had already been informed. But the damage had been done. There was no way of spinning it. Charlotte, the future queen's daughter, had casually and publicly dismissed the current queen consort's legitimacy. Not in a formal interview, not in a scripted setting, but in real life, which the royal family cannot control. Worse still, she'd linked it to her father. "Daddy just says we have to pretend." It didn't matter if she misunderstood what William said or simply repeated something she overheard between adults. To those outside, it sounded like a confession. A look at what Prince William really thinks about Queen Camilla. A look at how the Cambridge children are raised to view King Charles III's second wife. And for a monarchy that had spent decades attempting to heal the wounds left by Princess Diana's absence, this was more than just embarrassing. It was explosive, Social media erupted. YouTubers dissected the video frame by frame. TikTok's creators incorporated it into dramatic reenactments. Twitter is flooded with hashtags. #Princess Charlotte, #She said it not me, #Queen Camilla Orna. What about beneath the surface? The royal courtiers were terrified because this was not a breach of protocol. It wasn't a leaked memo or a popular rumor. This was a child raised inside the firm's highest walls, saying the quiet part aloud. That meant just one thing. Someone somewhere had said it first. By noon, the whole royal family was on edge. Queen Camilla learnt the news at Clarence House while preparing for a luncheon with Commonwealth delegates. An aide approached quietly, phone in hand, whispering, "Ma'am, I think you should see this before it goes any further." She watched the clip twice, then put the phone down. How did she respond? Tears, quiet, immediate. She was taken aback, said a courtier present that morning. It wasn't what was said, but who said it. This was not a tabloid. This was not Harry. This was Charlotte. Camilla had spent years rebuilding her public image, dealing with public ridicule, media backlash, and Diana's ghost, which seemed to follow her into every room. She had worked hard to be palatable, even accepted, but never completely loved. And now, from the mouth of a child, we are reminded that some shadows never move. Across town, Kate Middleton was pacing. She had heard the clip that morning, but she wanted to wait until she had more information before confronting it. By midday, she had spoken with Charlotte's head mistress, the palace media team, but not Camilla. She was furious, said a source close to the Princess of Wales. Not in Charlotte. Not really. I couldn't believe this was even possible. At the fact that someone somewhere had said this near her daughter. Kate, who is known for her authority and diplomacy, allegedly raised her voice behind closed doors. She demanded to know how it had leaked, who had spoken carelessly in front of the children, and why the family had not exercised greater discretion. But most of all, she was protective. "She's 9, Kate allegedly yelled at a senior aide. 9, and now she's in the spotlight like Meghan. Camilla is hurt. Kate is defensive. What about William? Silent. He received the clip that morning while on a private visit to Norfolk. According to sources, he listened, paused, and simply stated, "She didn't get that from nowhere." Then he walked away. There is no statement, no denials. Some people interpreted this as guilt. Others have a grim understanding. Because William, more than anyone, understands the burden of speaking Diana's truth in a palace designed to forget her. He also understands that his fiercely perceptive daughter Charlotte sees far more than most people realize. Tensions rose behind the palace walls. Staff attempted to get ahead of the press. Draft statements were proposed and then scrapped. A joint family photo op was proposed as a show of unity, but nobody agreed. The mood was too raw. Camilla reportedly declined to appear publicly for the next 48 hours. Kate, meanwhile, kept the kids close. And William? He said very little, but those closest to him noticed something had changed. He didn't speak ill of Camilla, said one aide, but he didn't rush to defend her either, because the truth was that this was about more than just the clip. This was about a feeling that had persisted for years. Despite numerous titles, crowns, and carefully worded statements, Camilla is not considered a queen by all members of the royal family, and one of them had just spoken it aloud. Princess Diana died in 1997. She never left her grandchildren, who were born long after the Paris Tunnel and the floral sea outside Kensington Palace. She appears in the portraits that hang in the hallways of Adelaide Cottage. She appears in quiet bedtime stories. She's in Charlotte's mischievousness when she questions a rule, and in George's softness when he speaks about kindness. She is in the eyes of a young boy named Louis, who once inquired, "Why don't we see Granny Diana?" And more than anyone else, she resides in Charlotte. She has that fire, a royal nanny said off the record. The combination of elegance and edge. She understands exactly who she is, and she asks the questions that others avoid. That is why her words about Camilla struck such a deep chord, not only for Camilla, but also for the institution that had spent the previous 2 decades attempting to rewrite history, because the divide within the family has never truly healed. Yes, Charles married Camilla. Yes, she became the queen. Yes, public opinion softened with effort, spin, and carefully staged compassion. Behind closed doors, Diana's presence was always unavoidable. And for William and Kate's children, it is more than just history. It is personal. Charlotte has grown up hearing these two names, Granny Diana, Granny Camilla, but only one has ever been delivered with reverence. According to family sources, Charlotte has long questioned why one grandmother is remembered with candles and photographs, while the other is remembered with polite smiles and long silences. She's old enough to notice the difference, one aide explained, and young enough to speak the truth without filters. Insiders have confirmed what many suspected. The Cambridge children have been raised with a full understanding of Diana's legacy. Kate, in particular, has made an effort to ensure that her daughter understands Diana as a woman, not just as a figure. This includes stories about resilience, grace, tragedy, and yes, betrayal. There is no evidence that Charlotte has ever been told directly what occurred between Charles, Diana, and Camilla. However, children do not require a timeline to experience a fracture. They pick up the tone. In photographs, adults stop talking when they enter a room. And Charlotte, who is both fiercely intelligent and emotionally astute, has figured out more than anyone expected. Granny Diana was sad. She didn't get to finish being princess, she allegedly told a teacher. It was not intended to be scandalous. It was simply true. To her, with one sentence recorded on a schoolmate's phone, that childish truth has erupted into a very adult crisis. The monarchy has spent decades attempting to balance two legacies, the one they inherited and one from which they cannot escape. Charlotte unintentionally tipped the scales. For the first time in years, the royal family is forced to confront a question it thought had been buried with Diana. Is the future built on healing, or am I just forgetting? Even children can recognize the difference. Perhaps the crown isn't as reconciled as it claims to be. The clip went viral in less than 4 hours. By sundown, it had been viewed more than 25 million times across multiple platforms. Every major UK outlet carried variations of the same headline. Charlotte caught on tape what she really thinks of Queen Camilla. While the palace attempted to downplay the situation, public reaction had already outpaced any official narrative. Something strange occurred, which no crisis communication team could have predicted. The public did not turn against Charlotte. They rallied around her. She's just a kid, but she said what we've all felt, one viral post stated. Even a 9-year-old knows the truth, added another. The hashtag started trending globally. #Charlotte said it, #Diana's granddaughter, #NotMyQueen. For the first time since Camilla's coronation, public opinion was visibly divided. Within 48 hours of the leak, her approval rating fell by 14%, according to polls. Viewership for a BBC panel discussing the scandal increased by more than 60% from the previous week. Even international media outlets, from France to Australia, covered the story, often framing it as a deeper reflection of unresolved royal grief. While some commentators expressed sympathy for Camilla, they were quickly drowned out by a tide of Diana support. Old clips of the late princess have resurfaced. Interviews, quotes, her final charitable engagements. Even Elton John's Candle in the Wind received thousands of reposts under Charlotte's name, as if the public had finally decided who they wanted to see in history books. "This isn't a rebellion," wrote one journalist on Twitter. "This is a reckoning, and it is coming from the next generation." But not all of the backlash was positive. Some questioned why a child's words were being analyzed as policy. "She's 9, one editorial cautioned. "This is not only a scandal, it is a failure of royal parenting. How did this occur on their watch?" Others blamed the palace itself, claiming that it never fully addressed Diana's legacy and forced a narrative of Camilla the Queen without properly acknowledging the trauma left in her wake. A former royal correspondent said it bluntly, "You cannot erase Diana through public relations, and you can't teach children to pretend something they don't believe in." Truth eventually finds a microphone, and this time it came from a little girl dressed in a Navy school jumper, her hair in a bow, and her voice just loud enough to be heard around the world. The public delivered a clear message. Charlotte did not start the fire. She just lit the match. And now the monarchy stood in its radiance. It was late. After the frenzy had subsided, the headlines had hardened. and the palace staff had completed another long day of damage control. Princess Charlotte sat cross-legged on her bed, still wearing her school cardigan, her cheeks flushed from the whirlwind she didn't fully comprehend. Kate sat beside her. There are no aides, no press, there are no protocols, just a mother and a daughter. And the words that shook the kingdom. "Mummy, am I in trouble?" Kate looked at her, trying to keep her voice from cracking. "Why are you thinking that?" "Because I mentioned something, and now everyone is angry." There was a prolonged pause. Kate took a breath, tucked a strand of hair behind Charlotte's ear, and quietly asked, "Why did you say that?" Charlotte hesitated. Then she shrugged in that small, disarming way children do when they aren't trying to be profound, just honest. "Because it's true." "Whose truth?" Kate asked. "Yours, Daddy's, Granny Diana's, mine." Charlotte spoke more clearly, as if she had been carrying the weight for longer than anyone could have imagined. She claimed she did not mean to hurt anyone. She claimed she didn't dislike Camilla. She simply didn't understand her. She expressed her dislike for people who pretended everything was perfect when it wasn't. "Sometimes it feels like we all have to smile for someone we don't really know." Kate's eyes welled. Not because her daughter had embarrassed the entire family, not because she broke protocol, but Charlotte had seen too much. She had noticed the strain in William's face at royal functions. She'd heard whispers about what Granny Diana would have thought. She and George had secretly watched documentaries together. She had pieced together what others hoped to keep hidden. "I don't want to be mean," Charlotte replied quietly, "but I don't want to lie either." Kate pulled her closer. "You're not in trouble," she whispered. "You're just learning. And sometimes the truth is more serious than people expect." She didn't scold her. She did not correct the narrative. She just held her. Because at that moment, it became painfully clear. Charlotte hadn't simply repeated a rumor. She had reflected a fracture, which the monarchy thought had been repaired long ago. And now, a child had reopened it. In less than a week, the clip was no longer in the news. The algorithm shifted. New scandals erupted. Royal sources denied, deflected, and eventually absorbed the narrative. But behind the palace gates, something had irreversibly changed. Princess Charlotte, without intending to, had cracked open the one conversation the crown had tried so hard to bury. Diana's absence was never truly absence. It was a presence, lingering, unspoken, and unsettling. And for a child raised in the public eye, that presence was not abstract. It was family. Charlotte had not issued a political statement. She had not rebelled. She had simply stated a truth she assumed everyone already knew. So, what was the response? Not punishment, not exile, but recognition. Because deep within the palace's gilded corridors, even the firm understands this now. The monarchy can no longer be based on silence. Not in an era of open phones and eyes. Not with children who listen more than they are told. Not with a generation raised under the shadow of a single woman's incomplete story. Queen Camilla continued with her duties. William returned to his engagements. Kate protected her children with grace. The statement never arrived. The press never pushed. But Charlotte remained, sharper, quieter, and more aware of what her words could accomplish. She is third in line for the throne, a future queen who has already shaken the crown. Not through defiance, but with clarity. Because ultimately, what shocked the world was not what she said about Camilla. It was that she knew what to say at all. And now, as the royal family presses on, cameras flashing, titles bestowed, history rewritten, the question echoes louder than ever before. If a child can see past the performance, how long can the act go on?